Good day. Today I wanted to talk about Deborah Sampson, one of the several women who fought in the American War for Independence. Much has been said about her in recent years, largely because of Alfred Young's book, Masquerade: The Life and Times of Deborah Sampson. In his book, Young attempts to tell the true story of Sampson. Most of what has been accepted about Sampson's story came from the work of her promoter, Herman Mann, in 1797. Following her time in service, Deborah Sampson became the first woman in history to begin a lecture circuit tour telling her story as a soldier in the Revolution. Much of her success as a public figure came with the help of Mann's book, The Female Review. The problem is, much of Mann's work and even some of Sampson's own testimony were fabrications. As Anne Lombard mentions in her review of Masquerade, the difficulty Young faced in creating his work was rooted in finding Sampson's voice among Mann's writing. Whether he knew it or not, Young was attempting to do what we as Christian historians should endeavor to do according to our biblical worldview, which is to be objective and honest in our investigations. I will attempt to do so in retelling the story of Deborah Sampson, an American patriot. Deborah Sampson had a rich family background. As the National Women's History Museum notes, Deborah's descendants were founders of the Plymouth Colony. Being related to such great men like Miles Standish and James Bradford, though, did not lead to an easy life for Miss Sampson. At the age of 5, her father did not return from a sea voyage. Believing him to be dead, Deborah's mother struggled to provide for her 6 children. With no other options, Miss Sampson sent her daughter off to be an indentured servant. At the age of 18, Deborah had served her time and went on to become a teacher and a weaver. As the Revolutionary War broke out, Deborah Sampson attempted to do her part to serve the Patriots. To her, the best way to do this was to pose as a man and enter the army. In April of 1782, Miss Sampson attempted to join the Continental Army dressed as a man, but was recognized and forced to flee. But by the next month, Deborah Sampson had successfully registered in the Continental Army as Robert Shirtliff. As Young points out, this timing does not coincide with Mann's description of Miss Sampson being present at the Battle of Yorktown. For the next 18 months, Deborah Sampson served with the 4th Massachusetts Regiment. In that time, she had led soldiers in the capture of a Tory house, survived a saber gash to the head, and even been shot in the thigh. Being fearful that she would be found out if she allowed herself to be treated by the field doctor, Deborah Sampson removed the musket ball out of her leg herself. But finally, in the summer of 1783, Sampson was overtaken by a fever and sent to a hospital in Philadelphia. There the doctors discovered her secret. Though she had been found out, she was not discharged until October of the same year. Unlike other women who had secretly served, Deborah Sampson was honorably discharged, and in January of 1784, months after the war was over, Deborah Sampson's time as Robert Shirtliff became public knowledge. By 1797, Mann had published his book, and soon after, Sampson began to seek back pay from the Massachusetts government. Deborah Sampson began to tour the nation, sometimes in full uniform, to tell her story. Between the time of her discharge and the beginning of her lecture tour, Sampson married Benjamin Gannett. They had 3 children and adopted another. By 1816, she became the first woman in American history to receive a military pension. 11 years later, Deborah Sampson Gannett died at the age of 66 as a true American patriot.